Good day, Hyperspinners. Austin here. In this tutorial or guide, I'm going to show you how I set up Hyperspin. I'm not saying this is the best way or the most correct way, but it's the way that after a few incarnations of my Hyperspin setup, it's what I've come up with and it works so far for me. I'm sure a few comments and a few people may pop out the woodwork on this video, giving the guides and helps and tips and things I've done wrong. However, it's how I do it. Of course, Hyperspin isn't just Hyperspin anymore. Hyperspin has been released for some years now. It's become a little dated. Functionality hasn't kept up with the actual wants, needs and the actual emulators themselves. So a few of the people on the scene, especially DJ VJ amongst others, have come up with Hyperlaunch. Hyperlaunch is a program which works in conjunction with Hyperspin to squeeze every ounce of gamey goodness out of it as possible. To be honest, the functionality and the things it brings to the table, the list is so long that it would take at least an hour video to just run through the actual functionality of it, never mind how to get the most out of it. But what I'm going to show you is how to actually set up Hyperspin, working obviously with Hyperlaunch. And from there, we're going to make a few more videos, and they will show you how to set up the various systems on Hyperlaunch. Hopefully, at the end of it, you as the user would be able to set up Hyperspin in a matter of, well, if I had my way, a day. So all these knobs that are online and stuff trying to sell Hyperspin, giving their drives pre-configured, blah de blah, blah de blah, offering them for hundreds of pounds or dollars or whatever. There's no need for it. Basically, I've got no problem with them selling Hyperspin. It's not my bag. I don't own Hyperspin, so who am I to judge anything? I've made some artwork for it, I've shared it, I don't care if they use it. At the end of the day, the selling point is the fact that Hyperspin is complicated. Well, at the end of the day, it's not. Hyperspin is a piece of piss to set up. The problem, I would say, is finding all the media that matches up, that's complete for every system, and making it look nice and fit together in a way that's presentable for you, the user. I'd say almost 100% of all the ones that I've seen sold online basically had a bag of shit, and I wouldn't have on my setup even if I was just downloading and installing, never mind pay hundreds of dollars for or hundreds of pounds for. So enough of that crap. Let's go off the rails a little bit. Let's get stuck in and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, well, first of all, obviously you need to go to the various websites. You will need Hyperspin, as we talked about, and you will need Hyperlaunch. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is Hyperspin. I'll put all the links below so you can go straight to the websites and have a mooch around. Obviously, get all the bits and bobs that you need. Okay, first of all, then you're going to need Hyperspin, obviously, because that's the whole thing that we're going to set up. So this is the Hyperspin website. You will need an account. The account obviously is free, however you will need to do it. I'm not going to show you how to do that. It should be somewhere up here, register or log in. Obviously, if you've never used Hyperspin before, you will need to just register, set yourself up. So obviously you're logged in. As you can see there, I'm logged in with my username. So once that's done and you've registered and you're all logged in, take yourself over to the download section. You will need the most current version of Hyperspin, and there it is, Hyperspin 1.0 downloads. Now this will bring you to all the different downloads that are on offer for Hyperspin. You want the top one, Hyperspin releases, and then the version that we're going to be downloading, I believe, will include all these various programs anyway. So ignore all these, go straight to the Hyperspin. and I've never done it from the update pack. I've always just gone straight in and gone for the install files. So go into the install files, bring to this page, and then click download. This will bring obviously the box up for your download. Download it. I've already done this, so no need for that. Okay, so that's your Hyperspin setup downloading. Next thing we'll need is your Hyperlaunch. Okay then, Hyperlaunch is available in the download section of Hyperspin. However, I've not really looked into it, but I believe it's not the most current set. And the one thing that you need in Hyperspin is an updated version of Hyperlaunch. I believe there's install files there. Yeah, I wouldn't go along with it. I'd go to the official website, which is the Hyperlaunch website. I'll give the link below. Again, the downloads don't work unless you're actually registered and logged in. So take yourself over to the register section, register in with Hyperlaunch, log yourself in, go to the download section, and you can see the version of Hyperlaunch. The layout and everything is almost identical to Hyperspin, so you shouldn't have too much problem navigating through the website. But anyway, take yourself over to Hyperlaunch. And there you go. I think the version that we're up to now is 3.105 beta. Basically around Christmas time, Hyperlaunch was updated quite considerably, and to be honest, it was a godsend. There's a lot of new features added, and it's brought the functionality out quite considerably. So anyway, enough of the waffle. Download the Hyperlaunch, the newest version, which on this section is 3.105. Okay, same as before, it'll take you to the download page. Click download. This one's a mega file this time, so basically click download and it will start downloading. I believe you have to keep this tab open while it's downloading, but once it is downloaded, it will take you to your desktop, or the file will be downloaded to your desktop. Obviously your Hyperspin file that you downloaded will go to your your download section in your browser. So whatever that is, obviously open it up and bring it to a place where it's all brought in. Okay, so now you've got your Hyperspin. The most current version is 1.330, and you've got your Hyperlaunch, which, as we just talked about, is 3.105, the beta version. And if you want to have a read up, go to the various websites. There's loads, stacks of information, threads going on about everything. It'll take you years to figure it out. But I'm going to show you the quick way and my way of setting it all up. Okay then, let's get started. First of all, we need to figure out where we're going to install Hyperspin. So have a look at your computer. I like to install it in the root of a drive other than C. I upgrade my operating system, and sometimes I do whole complete fresh installs. I don't want anything to get corrupt or mess around with my actual computer setup and vice versa. So I like to keep it in a separate drive. I'm not saying that's a good thing, bad thing, or whatever, it's just the way I do it. So I normally keep it in my P drive, which is my Hyperspin drive. However, in this installation, just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to put it in my D drive. I'm not saying you can put it in P or D, you can put it wherever you want on your computer, including C, but it's your prerogative. Okay, so first of all, in the root of my drive, I want to set up a folder, Hyperspin. This is where everything is going to be placed. So I've got my Hyperspin folder set up. Then we need to actually install our Hyperspin setup. So open up the 7-zip file, choose everything, extract. We need to obviously put it in the folder that we just made, which was in the D media drive in my instance. Hyperspin folder, press OK. That's where it's going. OK. Give it its time to decompress and put all its files in, and this will now give us the bare bones setup of Hyperspin. I've never actually tried to install Hyperspin just as Hyperspin. I've always used Hyperlaunch, so it must have been so complicated back in the day before Hyperlaunch was made. Because although it does seem a lot more complicated with all the buttons and things just as seen in a minute, it's actually a lot more simple to set things up and get it to look good. Anyway, we'll cover that in a second. So that's now finished. All my files have now installed in the D drive Hyperspin folder, and there we go, the bare basics of Hyperspin. Now however, what we need is Hyperlaunch. This comes in a zip file. I'll open this with WinRAR. Just seems to work a bit easier with zip files, but you can use whatever you want. Okay, there we go. And within there you've got Hyperlaunch. Now, as you can see, you've got all these folders inside your zip file. What you want to do is basically choose all of these, obviously minus the one at the top, drag it over. You're saying it already exists, do you want to do it? Yes to all. Basically what this is doing is it's superseding or updating all the files from the Hyperspin website. So it's in theory updating Hyperspin. So yes to all, it drags it over, replace all the files in the destination, replace them all, yes. Okay, and that's you. You've got Hyperspin now set up. So if I was to run Hyperspin, I can't remember if this will even run on its own now. Got the Hyperspin bare basic setup with the annoying sounds, pretty loud music going on, and Hyperspin is working. Now the Hyperlaunch that you installed goes down to the bottom here in the Hyperlaunch HQ. I personally like to create a shortcut and bring that into my Hyperspin folder. So now we've got Hyperspin, which is the actual program or the front end which runs Hyperspin. You've got Hyperlaunch HQ, that's the main control panel for getting everything to run to me, and Hyper HQ, which is, for better words, a control panel to make Hyperspin look good, if that makes any sense. Okay, we'll go into a bit more detail in that, probably in this video and definitely in later videos, but that's you set up now with Hyperlaunch and Hyperspin. Now, as you can see, you've now got emulators, and you've got no, you haven't. You've got your emulators folder. Basically, you can put your emulators wherever you want, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. However, I like to keep it as this. It looks like they've included the emulators folder now, which you used to have to make yourself. It comes with no emulators within it. However, it's worth, I like to keep all my emulators so I know where they are. I also like to make another folder called Utilities. I can't even see if that's spelled right. There you go. And any tools or any extra things that I need for Hyperspin, I place them in there, just keep it all organised. After setting this up a few times, I do find that unless you keep things organised in your Hyperspin setup, you get files and all kinds everywhere, and it starts to get a little confusing. So that's your Hyperspin setup. Now hopefully we'll open Hyperlaunch. We can do this from the shortcut that we just made, Now, when I open this, it will probably ask me to configure bits and bobs. It's been a while since I've done this, so let's have a look. No, it's gone for it. So it knows where Hyperspin is, and it's configured itself by the looks of it. When you do start this up for the first time, it may not have done this because this isn't a fresh install on my complete system. It's just a fresh install in this instance. But when you first install Hyperlaunch, you will come up with obviously a window like this, but also some of these fields, from what I remember in previous instances, have not been filled in. It's up to you to either fill them in or let the system itself fill it in. Luckily they came up with they come up with the little icon here. You press this and it will fill in basically all the bits and bobs within your Hyperlaunch system to make it run in a default way. Obviously you will need some configuration to get it going, but that's it sorted. Okay then, so we've got Hyperspin and Hyperlaunch set up. Right, to go into a bit more detail on this, Hyperspin is your front end. That's the thing that pops up, the bit that you scroll through, you choose your games, your systems, blah de blah, the bit that everybody likes to play with. Hyperlaunch HQ is the program that makes Hyperspin run. So that's the bit that you configure to move your wheels, change your artwork, tell it where your artwork is, tell it where your ROMs are and things like that, so it knows what systems you've got and what games you've got. Hyperlaunch HQ is the bit that makes it all happen. That's like the, I don't know, the engine in a way. Think of this as the bodywork, that's your steering wheel, and this is your engine that makes it all work. So when you open it all up, you've got this. So up at the top you've got various tabs. There's a lot of information there. You do not need to know most of this at this stage. We'll go on to this in later videos. And these are tabs to be able to configure things depending on what system you're using. Normally in the drop down box on the left hand side you will have a list of systems that you've got already configured on your list. A list of emulators that you got running. But let's try and get this set up. From what I remember now, if we was to go into global emulators, so in our root we've come into our D drive, or in my instance, or the Hyperspin drive for you. Go into your Hyperspin folder, and there you go, the root of the Hyperspin folder. Within there you need to go into settings. Once you're in settings, go to global emulators. I don't like to delete anything, so I'm going to rename this as backup. Or backup. Backup. Okay. And global emulators example will now become global emulators. That's because for some strange reason I like to have a full list of emulators available that Hyperspin works with, and as default it doesn't do that. The example is full of the list, the normal one is not, so that will now become the global emulators information, or AHK, or wherever file it is. So now when we open Hyperlaunch, see, and in the emulators now we've got a list. Hyperlaunch is quite clever. It knows when a system is configured, it knows when it's set up. Most of the information is already inputted for you, such as the extension types for the various file formats and the actual setups of the actual systems. As you can see, as default, I got BlueStacks in the normal location where it does it automatically. So it's already picked up on that, and it's not got the exclamation mark saying that it's not configured or not working. So that's that put in. Now what we need to do is actually tell Hyperlaunch that we want to use it as the system. So what we need to do is go to Hyperlaunch HQ, and we need to tell Hyperlaunch that we want to use Hyperspin. This is it all looks quite complicated, but to be honest, as long as you go along with what I'm doing, you won't need to do this ever again. It's just a case of setting up the emulators one by one, and nowadays the emulators are quite generic and they all work basically the same. So go along with me here. So we're clicking on the Hyperlaunch HQ, which opens this tab. We need to go to the Front Ends tab, and as you can see, at the moment Hyperlaunch isn't configured to run Hyperspin. It's configured just to run Hyperlaunch. I want to use it with Hyperspin, the Hyperspin that we just set up. So what we need to do is add a new front end. We'll call this Hyperspin. There we go. We need to tell it its path. So as you can see, it's on my computer, D drive, Hyperspin HQ. However, that's the Hyperlaunch HQ folder. So if we go up one, it will take us to our front end, which is Hyperspin. So we'll tell it that Hyperspin's there. Hyperlaunch HQ plugin. We'll just tell it to auto detect, and the front end. The Hyperlaunch plugin is Hyperspin. So in other words, we're telling this to use Hyperspin. Then all we need to do, save, and there we go. Now, that isn't just configured. What you've got to do is also tell it to use this. If we go full screen, the bad thing about Hyperlaunch is that unless you full screen or extend the menus, then sometimes you don't see the tabs or the options that are open to you. So if you full screen Hyperlaunch, we got these different versions. As you can see, let's pull these over. And it's telling us that at the moment we've got Hyperlaunch HQ as the default front end, which is this, and that's the active one at the moment. We don't want people to tip up to the house and start playing with this, because first of all, it doesn't look very good, and secondly, there's too many things to play with and things will get broken. So we want to use the Hyperspin one that we just set up. So we'll tell it to, where's it gone? We don't want to edit it, we don't want to delete it. Sets as default front end. So we click on that one. As you can see, the tick's gone into this box now, and also we want to make this the active front end. So we click that one. There we go. And that's made it the default and active front end. And now, as you can see, it's now found all the systems which are currently enabled on our Hyperspin system. So we know now that this is working with Hyperspin. Okay then, so that is now Hyperspin and Hyperlaunch now set up, ready to roll, ready for you to use your systems. Now, one last thing. Controls. Controls are fucking shit in Hyperspin. Don't get me wrong, Hyperspin, you can control it, as in the front end. The problem is that the actual controls are dictated by the keyboard. There's no other way in Hyperspin to run as normal or in the original setup of Hyperspin. There's no way to control it other than the keyboard. There's ways around it, which I'll show you, but as standard, the only configuration that works in Hyperspin is the keyboard. So I'll show you a way how I do it, which is using a Xbox 360 pad. I mean, you can use arcade setups with sticks, different pads, but the way I do it is an Xbox 360 pad. Okay, so what we need to do is, first of all, we're going to be using Gutch92. He made a nice script. I'm sorry if that's pronounced wrong, but yeah, he made a nice script. And I also made a lovely icon which goes with the script. You'll see that in a second. However, I'll put the link in the description for this script. It's got all the information about how it's made, what it does, how to use it, blah de blah. However, I'm going to show you how to set it up. Now, for the implementation of 360 pads, I believe it also uses other pads, wired, wireless, but I've never tested. The only thing I've used it on is the actual 360 pads, which goes along with my setup. So, I'll give you the link, that'll bring you to here. You can have a read if you want. However, go to this section here, Hyperspin startup script. At the time of me doing this, we're on 1.07. I believe there's been a few bugs which is ironed out, and it's quite long now and it's quite well developed. So, what you need to do is download it, click on the link, it'll give you this option, download it if you wish to. I've already got it, however it's on my desktop, so I'll exit out of here. Here's the script. It's a zip format, so what I'll do is I'll extract it here because it's only one little file. And there's the icon that we were talking about. Lovely, isn't it? So, in the utilities folder, this is where it starts coming into play now. This will eventually start to fill up with lots of useful things to aid you in your progression through Hyperspin. The first one, however, will be the startup script for us. Startup script can be used for loads of things like we talked about. However, in this instance, we're going to use it for the implementation of a joypad. So, script. So, make a folder in the utilities folder, name it startup scripts or whatever you want, doesn't make any difference. I'm going to drag this over. So that's our startup script in there with the best icon, label, thingy, whatever you call it, I've ever seen on anything on the internet or on my computer for that matter. We're going to delete the original just to get the full experience. We're going to make the icon bigger because it's an amazing icon. And there we go. Right then, so in order to get this to work, it's an exe file. It's only tiny. Yep. We're going to double click on it. This will make another file. Another file. I believe this is a ini file. In other words, it's a text document that we can edit. Yep, ini file. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this. I use Notepad++, however if you've not got that, I believe you can use Windows Notepad as standard. I'll do the same thing, it's just that Notepad++ does make things a little easier when you're editing stuff. Download it at your own discretion really. Okay, so when you open it up, this is what you'll be presented with, or if you've got Notepad normal, then you'll just get a more plain version of this. However, all the information will not have changed, let's say. Okay then, so points we need to know on this is the control section. We're going to be using this for joysticks, so when it says joysticks enabled here, we need to change false to, yes, you guessed it, true. And at the top here, we need to tell the script where our Hyperspin is. So it's asking us for the Hyperspin folder path. In other words, wherever the file Hyperspin is, or wherever we launch Hyperspin from as the root folder, we need to know that path. So in the example it's given us, it's in C drive and it's in the folder called Hyperspin. We know that it's in D drive, and it's in our Hyperspin folder. There we go, and there's our Hyperspin in our Hyperspin folder. Now we can simply just type that in there. However, I'm crap with typing and I always end up with mistakes, so the easiest way to do that is tell it what folder by clicking on it, copy the address, then highlight what we want to edit, in other words everything along that path, and we'll paste it in. Right click and paste. And there we go. Now the Hyperspin folder path is D drive Hyperspin folder. Okay, next thing it wants to know is the Hyperlaunch folder path. Again, it's C Hyperspin Hyperlaunch. We know this has changed. Let's have a look. Right, what it's asking for is the Hyperlaunch. Hyperlaunch is a completely different entity from Hyperlaunch HQ. Hyperlaunch is just a program which Hyperspin uses to launch the various programs. It's nothing that we need to play with, not at this stage anyway, and you probably won't need to play with ever again. It's just something that is used by this program and Hyperspin to launch its programs. Nothing to configure. However, we need to tell this script where it is. Lucky for us, in our setup it's in the exact same folder as the Hyperspin, so no need to copy it over again. We just highlight the folder. Not very good at this time. Right click, paste, and there you go. So it knows where Hyperspin is. Wrong, yep, it knows where Hyperspin folder path, and it knows the Hyperlaunch folder path. We've changed the joystick enable to true, so it's telling us that we want to use joysticks. This script does a lot of other things and things that you can play with. We'll go into a bit more detail probably later on in other tutorials, but for now the only thing that we need to know is that it's working with a joypad. So what we need to do now is save that, save and exit. And that's that working. We've completely figured the Hyperspin startup script to enable joypads. Now what we need to do is tell Hyperspin to actually use the script. Again, it's not an easy thing for Hyperspin. So let's go into it. We'll load up HyperHQ. And on the main settings tab you will have general screens, optimize, attract, sound and startup. What we need to do is click onto the startup. In here, as you can see, you've got a path called startup program. Basically what this is telling Hyperspin is when you start up you need to sort this file out or start this file. So we need to tell it what file we need to start with Hyperspin. In this instance, it's gone straight to it, which is nice. However, sometimes you put with whatever. What we know is in the D drive, it's in the Hyperspin folder, it's in the utilities folder that we already made, and the startup script. We're not pointing it to the ini file, we're pointing it to the startup script file, the exe, with the lovely icon that I made. So highlight that, double click on it, and there you go. Full path is there, and just ensure that the exe is on the end. So when we start Hyperspin, it's telling it that I want to start this program with it. So this program will then enable the joypad and all the controls to go along with Hyperspin, working in conjunction with it. And that is that. There's no need to save anything of this. The good thing about HyperHQ and the Hyperlaunch HQ is that whenever you make a decision or edit something in it, basically it saves it straight away. So all I need to do now is exit out of that, and that is basically Hyperspin set up with 360 controls and ready to roll. So I'm going to start up Hyperspin now, and we're going to test the controls just to make sure they work. I'm not going to talk during this because Hyperspin default sounds are loud and shit, so I do apologise if it's blowing your speakers or your headphones, but we're going to give it a test anyway, and we'll give the results once it's done. Quick load. So there you go. That's Hyperspin now working with our control pad. And that's Hyperspin set up. So now you've got your Hyperspin installed on whatever drive it is that you're working on. You've got your Hyperlaunch HQ set up, and any drive that you're working on. They're both working in conjunction with each other. It's all configured and ready to rumble. The only thing that you may need to do is update. To enable to do this, the most simplest way is to go to the website. I'll give you a link. Go to the website done by Hyperlaunch, and here is a step-by-step guide in order for you to get the automated service to update Hyperlaunch. Not only does this update Hyperlaunch, but it also updates any modules or anything like that that you may need to do. You don't need to know what modules at this stage, we've only just started. However, it's all pretty simple, it's all automated. We'll learn about that in one of the later videos and when we start getting our systems set up. So for now, we've got everything together, everything's installed, we've got the backbone, the building blocks. It is complicated, it is a pain in the ass. We have been at this for some time, however, we've managed to do this in half an hour. Basically, you've saved yourself already a shit ton of money, because what we've done is we've installed Hyperspin in a matter of 30 minutes. Everything's working the way it should do. It's all done properly. It's the most latest version, and we're ready to set up systems. So in the next ones, in the next videos that I'm going to be making, I'm going to show you how to set up almost every emulator that you need to use. A lot of them cross-platform onto different systems. Many systems will use the same emulator for different versions. For example, the same emulator that runs, I don't know, a Sega Mega Drive or Genesis can also run a Super Nintendo. And there are a lot more other systems to go with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set all those up. I'm also going to give you all the media that you may need in order for it to look right. The only problem is that all the stuff that I'm going to include is for widescreen. So if you've got a widescreen set up, you're in luck. If not, sorry, but you're going to have to use the default stuff or source your own. Some things that I would suggest before we start on to the next stage is, I'm sorry, but you are going to have to splash the cache. You can do it on your own. You can get yourself your own artwork and things by downloading, but most of the time it's not named right, it's bad quality, it's all jumbled up and it's a big mess. What I've done is I've configured all my artwork to work with each other. It's all resized, all the themes work, everything's put together in a widescreen format. I've resized everything. The only thing that you will need is a membership to make things easier. I don't get any money for this, so don't think that I'm doing this for any kicks or giggles, any cash. I'm just doing this to make life easy for you. You can do it the hard way and spend years, or you can just donate. It's 45 quid. I believe that's just over 30 UK pounds if you're working sterling. Once you've done that, head on over to Emulators. Again, all the links I'll put in there. You can either buy a $30 subscription for a year, or a $60 for life. But if you've already become a member of Hyperspin, I believe you get a 25% discount with the voucher code that you get given. So, yeah, it's money, but it saves you so much time. Things are brought up to date, especially for your movies. To get all your intros and all your movie snaps for your various games, just pay it. I mean, I'm not a millionaire, but if you're really seriously interested in this, pay the cash. Again, I don't get no money for it. I'm not doing this to get money out of you. I want you to do this for almost free. And just know that it's a lot more complicated unless you do these basic requirements. So once you've done that, I'm going to bring out the next videos. They're going to be showing you how to set up the systems, and anything that you don't have, I'm going to give you. Okay then. Thanks a lot, guys. If you got any questions, just give me a shout, and make sure you like and subscribe. Share this around a bit. Share the wealth. Let everybody know about Hyperspin. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.